Hey everyone, good evening. Welcome. You're in the Sunday weekly warm-up space. My name is Brad Hughes. Welcome, Teach Better family. We're streaming exclusively in the Teach Better private Facebook group. We're here to get your week started, kickstart your week, whatever your important role in education might be. And joining me in the Sunday weekly warm-up space tonight is a colleague, a mentor, an inspirer, and a chief ruckus maker. It's Daniel Bauer. So we're really glad you joined us tonight. When we come back after the break, make sure you say hello to us in the comments. Let us know where you're watching from and get ready to get inspired. Get ready to get a wonderful week ahead. We're ready for the Sunday weekly warm-up space here in the Teach Better Facebook group. So fired up. Let's do this. Let's get the conversation started. My co-host with the most on the Lake Michigan coast, Ray Hewart, is traveling this week. She's in Indiana visiting family, wishing her the very best. She's joining us in the comments and joining me, well, live and almost in person, side by side, is a good friend, a colleague, an inspirer, and chief ruckus maker, Daniel Bauer. Danny, good evening. Welcome into the Sunday Weekly Warm-Up Space.
Brad, it's good to see you, buddy. So thanks for the invitation to be here.
Amazing to have you with us. Danny, you are and do all the things: author, inspirer, mentor, facilitator, podcaster, and chief ruckus maker. For those of us watching and listening that haven't gotten to know you yet or need to be reintroduced, tell us a little bit about yourself, where in the world you are, and what gets you fired up each and every day to be the educator that you are.
So a long time ago, I had trouble getting to class on time. It wasn't always my fault, Brad, right? My friend Lindsay, like best friend, she would come and pick me up, drive me to high school, but she had a very nasty habit of like waking up late. So that means I would be late to class. And I learned that I was going to get in a lot of trouble. Like detention after detention would pile up, and it was like this close, suspension time. The heat was real. And so, in order to sort of self-preserve, I had to adapt, and I learned to kind of entertain my teacher as I walked into the classroom. And he had it. I was about to get a suspension, but I said, "Hold on, Mr. Rogers." And can you believe his name was Mr. Rogers? I said, "This time, listen, it's for real. There was a house on fire filled with Girl Scouts, and I had to go in, save the girls and the cookies, right?" I don't know if it was the very made up story or the very real Do-si-do, which is a peanut butter Girl Scout cookie. And I'm a sucker for peanut butter. So I don't know if it was the story of the peanut butter cookie, but Mr. Rogers left me off the hook. And what that taught me, Brad, was that it pays to invest in your storytelling skills. And I got out of the suspension, didn't get in trouble, and had a lot of fun. So anyways, I like to tell good stories. I love to support school leaders. My whole brand, everything's about being a ruckus maker. We can get into that if you think it would serve the audience. But yes, where am I at these days? Syracuse, New York. But I've been everywhere: Chicago, Illinois, Atlanta, Georgia, Houston, Texas. Yeah, I'm gonna list them all. There's only a few more. Antwerp, Belgium, The Hague in Netherlands, Glasgow, Scotland, and now Syracuse, New York. So that's me in a nutshell.
Danny, how did you become and how do you maintain this status, this way of being a ruckus maker? What does that mean to you? And how do you draw others into the ruckus making incredibleness that is Danny Bauer?
So to be a ruckus maker, I think that's making 3 commitments. So commitment number 1 is committing to your continuous growth, right? You can't. So I serve school leaders. That's my niche, and that's who I love. And in terms of leadership, like, you need to be constantly growing, right? If you're not reading, growing, getting coached, mentored, what are you doing leading? That's a choice that I make. So to be a ruckus maker, you're invested in your continuous growth. 2, you're challenging the status quo, right? Tradition can be good, and tradition should be honored. But at times you might want to question tradition. Does it really serve the students that are in front of me, the community that is currently the community? And if you can't answer, yes, this tradition does serve them, then you might want to challenge it and reinvent the rules. The last commitment you make as a ruckus maker is designing the future of school now, right? We've all heard probably the most popular critique of education is, oh, wah, 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 factory model, blah, 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 right? Like, great. That is probably a valid critique. But when a critique, doesn't offer solutions, I kind of drown it out. And so that's why a ruckus maker designs the future of school right now, because, we want to evolve. We want to innovate, and help education become whatever it's going to become.
Danny, for those educators listening and following along with us live tonight, or maybe later this week as we drop on a number of social media channels, what do you advise an educator to do if he or she is sensing they're dissatisfied with the status quo? There's something about their classroom, or there's something about their campus, there's something about where they're situated that isn't meeting student needs the way they feel in their heart that they can. What's one beginning way that someone can begin to scratch away at the status quo and start to move things forward?
I'd have them consider just what's an experiment you could run, right? And listen, I am not a science guy. I went I went to college to be a math guy. I got a story about why that didn't work out, and I became an English guy. So I taught, literature, reading, writing, Avid, that kind of thing. But running an experiment's nice because you can never fail at an experiment, right? An experiment can go not as planned, but you learn something, you adjust, you pivot. If the experiment works out the way you assume that it might, you're still going to learn some stuff and then go all in on that idea. And so to me, it helps to hold it with an open hand, right? What's an experiment that you're not tied to the outcome, but you could push the boundaries a little bit. It's not going to cost you your job or anything. And you might just stumble across an innovation that could change everything for you and your kids. So I like to provide sort of frameworks, ask the right kind of questions, and rarely do I tell you like this is how to do it. And so hopefully that's okay with you, Brad, because I'm just not here to say like do it this way. So run an experiment. That's the question I ask. What's the experiment you might run?
Well, when we're speaking about frameworks, Danny, you have written and published a couple of outstanding frameworks for educators and particularly school leaders. One I've got in my hand here is the Better Leaders, Better Schools Roadmap. This is something that I am challenging myself to work through and be active and engaging as I begin the school year this year. We had the opportunity to meet in person in Toronto, Canada this last summer, and I continue to be inspired by not only the work that you do, but by the hope you provide. And I wanted to ask you about part of this book in the chapter called The Team. And you talk about author and friend Greg Salsiccioli. Salsiccioli?
Yeah, Salsiccioli.
Salsiccioli. And in his book, your friend Greg talks about the number one enemy of excellence, and that is isolation. And so as educators get ready for their week ahead, no matter what important role they are, maybe there are educators watching and listening that are beginning to feel or do feel overwhelmed and isolated, not only in their work, but in the connections and that they need to make to, better themselves and better life for the kids. Can you comment on how isolation is the antithesis of excellence and what we might do to remedy that sense of isolation, even beginning tomorrow?
Sure. Well, yeah, like Greg mentions in his book, and it's called The Enemies of Excellence. He points out 10 enemies, that exist. And to him, and I agree, right, with his assertion, the number one enemy of excellence is isolation. They say if you want to go fast, right, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so to me, that's what it's all about. You see some of the values that I have behind me. They're beautifully illustrated by a company called Gaping Void. But the one over this shoulder, which is my left shoulder, but the way video works, it might be my right shoulder. I don't know, whatever. The point is, I believe when you get better, everybody wins. That is the foundational truth that guides all the work at Better Leaders, Better Schools. So if you agree with that too, when I get better, everybody else wins. It's like JFK's a rising tide lifts all boats. Or the way I love to tell ruckus makers and school leaders, you're the lead domino, right? You're the catalyst. Todd Whitaker says, when a principal sneezes, the whole building catches a cold. So just understand your presence, your energy, the way you're investing in yourself, that has a huge, huge impact organizationally. And you're just not going to be your best on your own. You never are.
Danny, do you think isolation is a necessary given in the life of an educator, especially as we shift attention to kind of restoring schools and restoring communities post-pandemic? Or is it something that we can constantly challenge to stay and be better connected with others?
I think we have so many tools, right, and opportunities to be connected. The first step is to connect with other growth-minded educators and ruckus makers online, and that's a great first start. And then when you really want to, dig into depth, I know that Teach Better has a number of offerings that are community focused, right, and cohort focused, where you can learn from each other and push each other to be better. My jam is working with school leaders, and we have opportunities for school leaders to dive in depth. Just this weekend, today's actually a pretty long day for me. I'm usually not working on the weekends, but I just ended a 2-day virtual event where I helped school leaders create their 3-year remarkable vision, right? And so that was a really incredible process. And when I was asking the attendees, just like, what was the number one insight, or what was most helpful from the experience? Many of them all chimed in just saying time and space to collaborate with other people that sit in a similar chair, that understand the work, right? That lets me know that I'm not crazy, that we all experience stuff, that the challenges, the ups and the downs are all pretty similar no matter where you are in the world. And just to clarify thinking too, right? Things could be fuzzy a little bit, but to have, thought partners and that kind of thing to clarify your thinking is such a gift. So you got to get connected. Isolation, I'll be a little tough here with everybody that's watching and listening. Isolation at this point is really a choice, and so you're choosing like to do it alone. You could do it in a much more effective way by linking arms with other folks that, you're aligned with.
Danny, we're going to take a quick break, but we're going to dive right back into conversation, and we're going to be shifting our conversation to some Sunday strategies with which our educators watching and listening tonight or in the week ahead might attack their week, whatever their important role might be, with lots of passion, vision, and excellence. We'll be right back. Hey everyone, welcome back. You are in the Sunday weekly warm-up space, streaming live exclusively in the Teach Better private Facebook group, and we'll be streaming later on all of the socials tomorrow, Monday at 8 Eastern, and I'm joined with Danny Bauer, Chief Ruckus Maker, Masterminder, author, podcaster, number one motivator and inspirer. And Danny, we're diving into some conversation, helping educators get set for the week ahead. And I want to refer to your second book, which I've got right here, and it's Build Leadership Momentum. This is designing a principal entry plan. And one of the things I picked out here, I think is applicable to all educators, and that's chapter 1, bring your best self to school. Danny, for anyone watching and listening tonight or later in the week or later on at teachbetter.com, what does bringing your best self to school mean to you? And what are some practical steps that teachers and educators can do to bring their best selves to school as soon as tomorrow?
We all have what's called like a shadow self, or a evil twin. And without, nurturing yourself, without having strategies for you to show up your best, that worst version of who we are will show up. I know I've always been embarrassed and really disappointed in those moments where that's happened. And so I have a number of strategies and things that work for me. So I show up here, right, as my best. And And so it's just really like when you think about your ideal self, when you think about your future self, right? And I would think a lot of the people streaming in here, watching, tuning in, and are considering like, let's say the Brad, the Danny, 5 years out, isn't that person doing bigger, better, more accomplished things, you know? And again, if you're a ruckus maker and you're consistently investing in your growth, you certainly are. When I get stuck, have a stinking thinking or just negative attitude, I often think about the future me and what does he need from the current me in this exact moment, right? It's really hard for me, Brad, to play small when I think of my future self and how
Mm.
he's saying like, come on, Danny, we can do this. And so that's just a simple sort of mindset shift that might help people. But, you know, there's things, you know, I call it the ruckus maker mindset tool, something I
Mhm.
teach within my leadership community, but it's just the basics, right? You don't have to go very far or learn something that's like way crazy or whatever to show up as your best. It's the fundamentals. So I'm talking about eating, sleeping, moving, meditating, unplugging, right? Eating, because you got to put good fuel in your body. Sleeping, the research is clear, 7 to 8 hours, you need it. If you're getting less, and if you get less than 7 to 8 hours of sleep consistently,
Mhm.
it's like you're showing up drunk to work. Most of us, maybe not all, but most of us would never show up drunk to work, right? And so if you're, you know, in sleep deficiency, it's kind of like you are. Moving around is just like fitness. You don't have to be Olympic athlete, pro athlete, CrossFitter. You could if you want to, but it's just moving the body, right? Not being so stagnant. Meditation, checking in with yourself. You can make it a spiritual experience if you want, but it's really about calming the mind, you know, seeing clearly, observing experience, and just investigating the inner stuff that's going on. I'm really into inner work and reflection, you know, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But it grows your emotional intelligence, and the research is clear there too. If you have higher and more developed emotional intelligence, you're more effective as a leader, right? Classroom teacher, principal, we're all leaders. We're leading somebody. You know what I'm saying? You also get paid more too if you if you develop your emotional intelligence. And then the last piece, like, listen, unplugging is so important because I know it's kind of ironic. We're on social media right now and putting
Sure.
our stuff out through technology. But if you don't have some boundaries around that, it's gonna impact your mental health, honestly, you know, and it's gonna make you way less effective in terms of like pulling you in a million different directions and put you in a state back to showing up as your best self. There's no way you're in your best self if you're constantly checking in with your phone and becoming essentially like a slave to the technology. So unplugging, really important. You might take a technology sabbatical, throw it on airplane
Uh-huh.
mode, chuck it in a drawer, you know, say goodbye to it for a week. I did a 7 day silent retreat, right? That was like the best time of my life. And, you know, I wish I could live without a phone, but you know, the honest answer is like I need it for communication. So, anyways,
Danny, so that was eating, sleeping,
moving.
moving, meditating, and unplugging. I'm wondering, for those that are watching us live tonight or reflecting as you're listening later, I wonder which of those key ingredients, those key puzzle pieces, might be more of a challenge for you, or might in your heart feel like the most essential thing, the next best thing that you can try to bring your best self to work, or to
Yeah.
bring your best self to life, I guess.
100%. And you know what I would love and challenge everybody who's engaging with us too, like throw it in the comments. What's one that you're doing well? Let us know.
Mhm.
What's one that's getting in the way and you'd like to improve? When I'm working with school leaders, and I have a tool. You know, is it okay to share that I have a tool and people could get it if they want? Is
Absolutely.
that all right? Cool. So if you go to betterleadersbetterschools.com/resources, there's a resource hub, 6 freebies that you could put your, you know, get your hands on. One of those is called the School Leadership Scorecard. Really interesting idea. It has 7 key categories and a continuum, like a rubric that you'd be used to as an educator. But essentially, you could check in with yourself, see how you're scoring against what I've seen working with hundreds of thousands of school leaders, what helps them be effective.
Yeah.
Long story short, and how it's connected to the ruckus maker mindset. I love to challenge leaders. Check in. How are you doing right now? And be honest, be candid. It goes 1 through 12. Don't lie. Okay, I'm a 2 here or whatever. Then make a plan for 90 days. Where do you want to be next?
Mm.
And that's a nice piece that I don't see on a lot of rubrics, but I think should be included. Here's where I am right now. Here's where I want to be in 90 days. And don't make a jump from 1, 2, 3 to like 10 or 12. Be realistic. A 3 to a 5, that's progress. That's something to celebrate. So anyways, you might throw that in the chat, but where are you doing well? Where do you want to be in 90 days? Where are you challenged? Where do you want to grow to? So thanks for letting me share that.
100%. This is the opportunity that all of us have, is to grow through those resources, through your expertise, and through the thousands of connections that you make daily, monthly, and yearly with school leaders and educators around the world. As you reflect on your development, both as an educator, as a school leader, and as a ruckus maker, when you reflect on those key puzzle pieces of bringing your best self, can you think of a time or times when it was evident that a change was needed, that was urgent for you to make a change? And would you be willing to share what that situation was and how you decided to move things forward?
So when I started Better Leaders, Better Schools, I was talking about when you get better, everybody wins. Like, what became clear to me was I'm at this event called the Global Leadership Summit. It's exactly what it sounds like. So a conference for leadership. And the guy basically said, when you get better, everybody wins. I think he phrased it a different way. Everyone wins when you get better is how he said it. And the honest truth, Brad, is I'm like, oh, if this is true, right, then it's critical. It's almost a moral imperative that I am consistently growing myself. And the honest truth, Brad, when I looked at my calendar, there was like nothing else on the calendar. There were no other events. At the time, I didn't have a coach or a mentor. I wasn't in grad school. I was reading maybe, but probably playing more video games. Nothing wrong with video games. I still play them today.
Right on.
But the point is, like, I really wasn't growing that much. And so that was a mirror moment for me. And actually, very shortly after going to that event, I took my own development into my own hands. You know what I mean? Often people are, hit with a crossroads. I don't know if your viewers and listeners can relate, but I love capital LOVE, all caps, right? Not screaming, just like emphasizing.
Yeah.
I love to throw a good old pity party for me. I've got it the worst. And the truth is, the system where I served didn't have a lot of great professional learning experiences. In education, I call it the 3 pillars of education. You got your student achievement, you got attendance, you got discipline. All those things matter. That's not my why. That's not why I got into education. And I was really interested in, like, how do you craft a meaningful school vision that actually guides the work of the school? I wanted to learn how to handle hard conversations. I don't know about you, Brad. I hate hard conversations. I'm a little scared of them. They make me feel awkward. I really have to prepare. It's not natural. Some people can crush them, not me. Thirdly, I've always served on campuses with students who are predominantly students of color. And so the inequities that existed in the system were clear. And I wanted to do something about it. And ages ago, that wasn't a very sexy topic to talk about. It seems more important these days, or maybe I'm living in a bubble and just the people around me are all focused on equity. But that was the stuff that I wanted to figure out. So shortly after that Global Leadership Summit, I started my podcast, September 2nd, 2015. You fast forward to today, it's just over 8 years old. The show's been downloaded over 2 million times, ranks in the top 0.5% of all shows worldwide, and it's changed my life. So that was a moment for me where everything changed. I could have thrown the pity party. Oh, Daddy, he's got it the worst, right? Nobody will develop him. Or I could take that development into my own hands, and that's what I did. And here we are now.
Danny, as someone who connects regularly with educators around the world through your leading podcast, Better Leaders, Better Schools, can you talk about how the creative cycle feeds you personally and professionally? That is, putting yourself out there, connecting with others, and feeding it forward to an audience, and How does it all work?
Yeah, well, it's interesting you bring up the the creative side of life and call it, I think, the creative cycle. But to me, I've always just been scratching my own itch, you know.
Mm,
So when it comes to leadership development, vision, any book that I've written on, the entry plan or whatever, it was just a need that I had, that I saw a gap, and I wanted to go out and search for the answer. And what I've learned is that I've just done my learning in public, and I've reaped some rewards for that. There's a acronym around there too. Not that education needs anymore, but I'm going to give you one. And it's ILT, right?
mhm.
Invest, learn, and teach. So you invest in yourself, you go out and learn some great stuff, you teach it to others. You're really going to master some content and grow as a result. Richard Feynman was a famous physicist, right, in the
Mhm.
US. And he talks, the Feynman technique is like, you've really mastered content if you could explain it to like a fourth grader, right? And so to me, it's like the creative process, solve your own problems, but then be able to explain it, complex stuff in simple ways. And people will love you for that, and they will grow as well along with you.
Danny, our listeners and our commenters tonight are just so inspired by the the challenge that you've put out is to take your development into your own hands. And we
Mm.
will come back after this break. I'd love for you to let everyone know how to get in touch and to stay in touch with you, and talk a little bit about your mastermind as well. Sound good?
Yeah. Sounds great,
Fantastic.
Brad. Thanks.
We'll be right back. Hey, you're with Brad Hughes and Daniel Bauer in the Sunday Weekly Warm Up Space, streaming exclusively in the Teach Better private Facebook group and streaming later on all the socials and as an episode of Teach Better Talk podcast. I'm with Chief Ruckus Maker Danny Bauer. And Danny, as we begin to wrap up our episode tonight, can you tell us more about how you connect weekly, monthly, and all year long with ruckus makers around the world through your masterminds?
Yeah, I'd love to talk. I mean, that's my favorite topic. How much time do we have? But the Ruckus Maker Mastermind, that's just a weekly experience, right? Um, I wrote a book on that. That book became a bestseller too. The process that we use, I call it the ABCs of powerful professional development. The A stands for authenticity, B is belonging, C is challenge. When
Mm,
you integrate authenticity, belonging, and challenge intentionally into a professional learning experience, we find it to be transformative. But there's a lot of masterminds out there, and they're all I'm sure really, really great. But any mastermind worth its salt is really going to leverage the collective IQ, experience, the wisdom. Over my right shoulder, it says trust your ILE. We all have an inner leadership expert. And
mm.
so we look to create a psychologically safe space where people could take the mask off, be real, raise their hand when they mess stuff up, ask for help, and just solve their number one challenges on a weekly basis. It's been an incredible experience. I think it's really relevant. I think it's responsive. I think it's result oriented. And if you go to betterleadersbetterschools.com/mastermind, you're welcome to learn more, maybe what sets us apart. There's a bunch of case studies, of school leaders that we've served. We've also tried to add a lot of value too. So many masterminds out there. It's going to be the weekly experience. If you decided to join one that we run, we have 2 deep work days, right? Where they're in-person live events that you could come to at no additional cost. We don't charge a ticket for that, and we just want to pour into you. The other thing is I've designed a new framework called the Automatic School. So
Mhm.
imagine a campus that is like the Shangri-La, basically, of education. It's running itself because students, staff, parents are so empowered, right? It's a wonderful, beautiful ideal. It's made up of 3 stages. The lead domino stage, which is
Mhm.
optimizing your own personal leadership. The ripple effect stage, which is all about nurturing relationships and developing your culture. And the third and final stage is the big picture stage. That's all about systems, strategic thinking, and mental models. But essentially, we drop a video and a tool and have a coaching call related to that framework too, all in addition, to the mastermind experience. So, that's what we do. My mission is to connect, grow, and mentor every school leader, right, that wants to level up. And it'd be lovely if there's some school leaders in this space that want to connect. I think you asked like how people could connect with me too. So
100%.
Email is fine. I kind of don't like emails so much. So feel free to email me if you want, Danny at Better Leaders, Better Schools. But I mean, honestly, you should just call or text. So my phone number is 312-788-7595. And Brad can tell you that's my real number because that's where he will text me and call if he needs to. So anyways.
In fact, I received a text from you, Danny, this week from that number, wishing me a happy Thanksgiving. We are celebrating Thanksgiving weekend here in Canada. And Danny, I want to thank you for taking time to come into the space, to share your gifts, to share your deep commitment to connection and development, both personal and professional. And I'd encourage everyone watching and listening to continue to connect with Chief Ruckus Maker Daniel Bauer. Danny, thank you so much for taking time to be with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. And honestly, like Teach Better is one of the organizations in our space that I really admire. And so I love the work that you all are doing. And I'm just super honored that you invited me out to be a part of this today. So thank you.
Well, the honor is ours. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight to the Sunday Weekly Warm-Up. Remember, tomorrow morning, it's Teach Better Live, 7 a.m. Eastern, with the Teach Better community, kicking off a week in education. And we've got more topics, we've got more tips, and we've got more practical suggestions to help you teach better each and every day. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll look forward to keeping in touch all week long. Take care.